Hi, my name is Niranjan Pandey and I am part of Alchemy Software Solutions e-learning and training content development team. I specialize in application development, system architecture, IT security, database design and big data solutions, virtualization and cloud solutions, machine and deep learning solutions, automation and robotics, DevOps and IoT. In this course, I will explore the prominent frameworks for testing Python-based applications, demonstrate how to implement unit test using PyTest and PyCharm, and also parameterize test using PyTest. I will also demonstrate how to configure and execute Python test using the robot framework, build and test APIs using Flask and Postman, configure and implement BDD test with Behave, and also automate testing web components with Selenium and Python. The objective of this video is to recall the concept of automated testing and classify the different types of automated testing. There are various different features which are exhibited by automated testing tool. First, we need to define automation testing, which means that we will be using automation tools in order to execute the test suite. Let's try to understand some of the features which are provided by automation testing tools. First and foremost important feature is capability to execute test case suite, which contains combination of multiple different test cases. Apart from that, it also facilitates you with entry point of data by providing various different capabilities of creating input test data which can be created using diversified data sources. Third, you need to have facility to compare expected and actual value and generate qualified reports in order to know current status of various matrices. Now, what is the relevance or importance of automated testing? First, no intervention is required from human, which in turn increases the speed and ensures that it provides better and more comprehensive coverage by increasing test coverage itself. Now let's try to understand that how we can prioritize test cases for automation. We need to identify those test cases which seems to be high risk and automate it. We need to also identify repeatedly executed tasks. They are the right candidate to be automated. Apart from that, in case if you find certain operations tedious to be performed manually where lots of manipulation and calculations are involved, better is to go for automation. And finally, manual testing can be time consuming. In order to save your time, you can plan automation. Now, what is the process that we can adopt in order to automate test? First, selection of right tool is essential. Once you have selected the right tool, which depends on various different factors, you need to identify and define the scope of automation. Once you have identified and defined the scope of automation, you need to go through proper planning, designing and development of test cases, bundling them into test suite, and finally moving to next step, which is execution. Once test cases are executed, you need to identify the vulnerabilities and you need to conduct proper maintenance activities. Now let's try to realize some of the benefits of automation testing. First benefit is it is faster than manual testing, ensures better consistency, saves lots of time which directly have impact over ROI or cost, improves accuracy because of reduced manual intervention. It can also facilitate in achieving more cycle of test execution and also frequency of test execution can be increased. And apart from all these benefits, it also provides a benefit that provides faster release of software by integrating it in DevOps automation lifecycle. The objective of this video is to list the prominent frameworks that we can use to test Python-based applications. We need to first classify type of test that we want to do. Our focus should be on more generic test automation and applying test-driven development paradigm. Robot framework is one of them. It is considered as a generic test framework. which can be utilized for acceptance testing and acceptance test driven development. It is based on keyword driven testing framework. Now let's try to classify some of the essential features of robot framework. First, it simplifies the entire end-to-end automation process. It is able to simplify because it uses test data syntax, which is simple and easy to understand. Robust framework has gained attention in market because of its highly extensible feature. And apart from that, robot framework also resolves all the inadequacy of parallel testing. Sometimes you need to write small tests, and in order to help you in writing those small tests, you can utilize a framework called as PyTest. PyTest framework's objective is to simplify and enable you to write small tests, but yes, it also supports scalability to support all the complex functional testing of applications and libraries. Let's try to understand some of the essential features of PyTest. First feature is it ensures that developers get capability to include tests inside large classes. Apart from that, it also provides capability of simplifying the test by using declarative language which is easy to write and understand. Modularity is expected in almost all applications, and PyTest takes responsibility of making your test modular, where it uses one fixture from another, making your fixtures reusable. PyTest is based on functional programming approach, and that approach ensures that PyTest can be extended by using concept of plugins. And finally, we need to also make note of a fact that PyTest is less compatible because you cannot use the test cases with any other existing framework. Unit testing need to be written for almost all applications, and we focus on automating the unit test. PyUnit comes into play there. It provides an simplified approach to create unit test programs and also helps you to unit test all the Python code. Some of the important features of PyUnit are it's highly inspired by JUnit. Test cases provides cleanup and setup routines. In other words, it comes with lifecycle management of unit test. And finally, it is capable of generating reports within milliseconds. Hence, you don't need to depend on third-party report generation tools. In various development scenarios, you would like to adopt behavior-driven development. Specifically, when you are using Python, Behave provides you capability of implementing applications using behavior-driven development approach, which is a software development technique, fits well with agility. Now let's try to understand some of the features which are provided by Behave. And first feature is capability of executing BDD test without any complications. Second feature is all your test cases that you write are written in simple readable language. In short, novice developers can also understand objective of the test cases. Third is it helps you to facilitate better product specs, which can be directly related to the identified requirements. And we need to also realize the fact that Behave works well only for black box testing. So you cannot use it for white box testing needs. Now we need to understand another tool which is comprehensively used for BDD, that is behavior driven development. It is one of the extremely useful tool for BDD, and that particular tool is Lettuce. Lettuce is an extremely useful tool for BDD implementation because it can execute plain text functional description as well, and it can be automated using Python. Let's try to understand some of the features. First feature is if you want to use Lettuce, one of the dependency is you need to have Python 2.7.14. Apart from that, Lettuce comes with simplified approach of using the tool. It has simplified the way tool can be utilized by users. Lettuce, because of its simple language, creates proper coordination between developer and QA teams. And finally, it can be used for black box testing only. The objective of this video is to list the features of doc test, nose, and unit test that can be used to automate testing of Python-based applications. There are various different frameworks that can be used in order to do proper testing. We have one of the modules called as doc test module, which is considered as one of the simplest approach to use than using unit test. Doc test is considered as a test framework that comes pre-packaged with Python. Let's try to understand some of the features of doc test. It's easier to use as compared to unit test, but yes, it may lack certain features which are provided by unit test. Doc test is suitable for complex testing needs. And finally, doc test module looks for interactive Python sessions for execution. Now let's try to understand automated testing process using doc test. We need to import doc test. After importing doc test, we need to define the function which is under test. We have defined FIB passing n, which calculates the nth Fibonacci number iteratively, and logic goes where you are using AB equal to 0 and 1 respectively. For I on range n, AB equal to B, A plus B, and it returns A. Now we need to go and execute it by using from Fibonacci, import FIB, which is the function. Make call to it, it returns 0, make call to another by passing a different value, capture the outcome, make call to third, capture the outcome, and then you have to evaluate it using doc test. Now let's try to understand another important framework called as nose. Nose is typically a tool which can find the test file and execute them automatically. Instead of manually running tests again and again like we did with doc test, it takes care of locating the test file and executing it automatically. Now let's try to understand some of the important features. First feature is automated finds and execution of test files. One of the downside of nose is its documentation. It is not as well documented as PyTest. And third feature is it is less popular than PyTest. Now let's try to understand how we can use nose for testing through an example. We have created certain files which is test_01.py, test_02.txt, test_03.txt. Another example of naming the file which will be located automatically by nose is bugfix02-test.txt, bugfix01_test.txt. In other words, you need to have proper combination and you need to ensure that test is part of the file name. Now we need to explore unit test and its important concepts. First feature of unit test is its capability of supporting test automation. And in order to achieve test automation, it will be using various different concepts. First is the text fixture, which represents the preparation which is needed to perform one or multiple tests and any other cleanup activities needed. Then you have the core, which is the test case, which is the smallest unit of testing. It will check for a specific response to a particular set of inputs. Third is the test suite, which is collection of test cases. We build test suite in order to aggregate tests that should be executed together. And finally, test runner, which is a component that takes responsibility of orchestrating the execution of tests and provide the outcome to the user. The objective of this video is to implement unit testing in PyTest using the PyCharm IDE. PyTest is a testing framework which helps us to write test codes using Python. And in order to simplify it, we can utilize PyCharm as an IDE. PyTest will run a specific test or a subset of tests and automatically detect tests. Now let's see how we'll be using PyTest using PyCharm IDE. We have created a project named testing. And this project is created in the PyCharm IDE that can be seen at the left hand side of the window, which is present under project panel. We have two Python files. One is operations.py where we have our production code, and test underscore operations.py, which is our test script. We know that PyTest needs test as part of your name in order to ensure that it automatically locates it. Let's explore the operations.py file by double clicking on the file and opening it in the editor. In line number 2, we have declared a simple addition function called add, which takes two parameters, x and y, and sets the value of y as 2. Line number 3 returns the addition of those two parameters, x and y. Similarly, in line 5, we have declared another function called product that takes two parameters, x and y, and sets the default value of y as 2. Line number 6 is all about returning the manipulation, where it returns the multiplication result of two parameters, x and y. Now we will double click on test underscore operations.py file and explore the content of it. In line number 1, we are first importing operations file to utilize the function that was declared earlier. Line number 4, we have written test case for addition function named test underscore add. Line number 5, we are making use of assert function and we are passing the values 7 and 3 as two parameters. You need to ensure that you have to pass concrete values. Expected outcome is 10. We have a similar function in line number 6 and 7 without passing the argument for y, as we want to use the default value of y that was set in the operations.py file. In line number 9, we have testing for production function named test underscore product. Line number 10, we are making use of assert function and we are passing the values 5 and 3 as two parameters with 15 as the expected result. Now to execute this PyTest, we will be using the command prompt. Let us first copy the path where test underscore operations.py file is saved. To do that, we will right click on the tab and click copy path and then select absolute path from the pop-up window. After opening the command prompt, we'll paste the path. We need to ensure that we remove the file name to move to the particular directory using cd command. We'll press enter to move to the directory. Once we are there in directory, we will now write pytest followed by test file name, that is test underscore operations.py. After writing name, we will press enter. Now we can clearly see in the console that one failed and one passed test. One of the tests failed because in the third assert statement, in the test underscore add function, we have passed 5 as x value, where our default value was 2 for y, so the result should be 7. However, we set the expected value as 3. Now, since actual and expected are different, your test failed. Now, let's go and change the expected value to 7 in order to ensure that we are able to pass the test. Now, once again, we will move back to the command prompt. After moving back to the command prompt, we'll execute the test by writing pytest followed by test file name, that is test underscore operations.py, and we will press enter. This time you will see that both the tests have passed. This is how we can implement unit testing in PyTest using the PyCharm IDE. The objective of this video is to demonstrate the procedure to parameterize tests using PyTest. We have already launched our PyCharm, which contains a project called testing. We'll go to testing, click on it to drop down and open operations.py. Once it opens, we can see what is the function which is under test. As of now, we are taking a simple function. Line number 2, we have defined add, passing 2 arguments and returning sum of those 2 arguments. Next, we need to launch our test underscore operations.py by clicking on the file under testing. And now we will first evaluate the existing test before we parameterize it. We have written import operations in line number 1. Line number 2, we have written def test underscore add Line number 3, we have written assert operations.add, passing the values 7 and 3 and comparing it with 10. Line number 5, we are collecting the result by executing add method of operation and passing hello and world, which are two strings. Line number 6, we are collecting the outcome and we are asserting. Line number 8 is again method call to add, passing float values and asserting the result in line number 9. Now, how we can simplify it? To simplify it, we need to ensure that we are adding parameterization capability of PyTest. To do that, we are pasting few lines of code. In line number 3, we have pasted import PyTest. Line number 4, we are defining the parameters. We have written @pytest.mark.parameterize, passing the arguments x, y, and result, which will be picked up from the array that we are defining within square brackets, which are 7, 3, 10 for the first call, hello, world, hello world for the second test call, 10.5, 25.5, 36 for the third call. Line number 11, we need to ensure that our test that we have defined uses the right parameter names. We are passing x, y, result, and in line number 12, we are asserting operations.add, passing x and y equal to result. Now you are able to avoid redundancy of writing test by using parameterization. We'll go ahead and we'll run the test now. To run the test, we need to copy the path, go to command prompt. At command prompt, move to the folder where your test_operation.py is present and write pytest followed by -v. Press enter. PyTest will automatically locate and it will ensure that it has executed the test cases for all three. We can see in the output that all three are passed. First time it called add along with 7, 3, 10. Second time hello world. Third time 10.5, 25.5 and 36. This is how you can simplify number of tests that you want to do by adding capability of parameterization. The objective of this video is to configure the robot framework for Python testing. Robot framework is a generic automation framework which is used for acceptance testing by using acceptance test-driven development paradigm. It is a keyword-driven testing framework which internally uses tabular test data syntax. To configure robot framework, we will be using our command prompt. After launching our command prompt, on the command prompt, we will use the command pip followed by install and specify robot framework and press enter. It will start downloading the files and it will install all the required packages. Once the installation is over, it will show that it has successfully installed robot framework. Now let's go ahead and verify the same by passing the command pip show robot framework, and you'll find that the result shows the name of the framework. Along with name, it also shows version, summary, and other details which are related to framework, which indicates that installation was successful. Now our next task is to install one of its important dependency, and that is Selenium library. To do that, on the command prompt, we'll write pip install robot framework minus Selenium library and press enter. It will download and install the same on the system. Once these activities are done, we will now switch to PyCharm IDE to verify the same. On the IDE, we'll go to File in the menu bar, click on Settings. On the Settings page, we will go to the project which is currently present in our IDE, and name of the project is Testing. We will then go to the project interpreter that's there in the project. We will now click on the plus icon located towards the right hand side of the settings window. Now a new dialog box will show up, which will list all the available packages. When we type robot framework in the search text field, we will be able to locate the same in the list of packages directory. This signifies that we have successfully installed and verified the availability of robot framework on the system. Now, to include this framework in our project, we can click on the install package that's there at the lower part of the available packages window and start using the same. This is how we will install and configure robot framework for Python testing.